The keep has been liberated. The enemy that held you captive has been driven from the valley. The corrupt lords have fled. The guards who stood outside your door have abandoned their posts. Down in the deepest level of the dungeon, the heavy wooden door swings open. The iron lock is broken. A shaft of blinding warm sunlight pours down the stone steps and strikes the damp floor of your cell. You can hear the wind. You can hear the birds in the courtyard. You are free. The war is over. The shackles around your wrists have been unlocked. By all logic, you should stand up. You should walk out of the dark. You should climb the steps and breathe the air of the liberated realm. But you do not move. You sit huddled in the darkest corner of the cell. You pull your knees to your chest. You look at the open door, and a terrifying, paralyzing dread washes over you. When the rescuers call your name from the courtyard, you do not answer. And when a fellow prisoner walks into your cell to lead you out, you bare your teeth. You curse them. You violently argue that the door is a trap. You argue that the iron is still on your wrists. You aggressively defend the dungeon. In the clinical world, this tragic, paradoxical state is known as learned helplessness and the victim identity. In the language of the keep, it is the burden of the unlocked cell. We must examine how a warrior's mind is broken to the point where it falls in love with its own captivity. The human spirit is designed to fight for freedom. If you lock a healthy man in a cell, he will strike the door. He will test the iron. He will look for a weakness in the stone. But if he strikes the door 1,000 times and it never opens, if he is beaten down every time he tries to stand, a profound neurological shift occurs. The brain, in a desperate attempt to conserve energy and survive the endless pain, rewrites its own code. It severs the connection between action and outcome. It concludes that nothing it does will ever matter. The ego accepts defeat not as a temporary circumstance, but as a permanent law of the universe. Psychologists call this learned helplessness. The iron shackles are no longer physical. They have become cognitive. We call them the phantom iron. Even when the circumstance changes, even when the corrupt lord dies, when the debt is forgiven, when the abusive alliance ends and the door swings wide open, the mind cannot perceive the freedom. The mind has been conditioned to believe that any attempt to move will result in pain. But there is a second, far more insidious layer to this psychology. It is the darkest secret of the human ego. In clinical psychology, it is known as secondary gain. We call it the treason of the martyr. If you have lived in the dungeon for years, the dungeon becomes your entire identity. You know the exact shape of the stones. You know the dampness of the air. You survive by being the one who suffers. And suffering carries a twisted kind of comfort. If you are a helpless prisoner, nothing is required of you. No one expects you to build a wall. No one expects you to lead a cavalry charge. No one expects you to forge a sword or protect the kingdom. Your failure to thrive is perfectly justified. You have a magnificent, undeniable excuse. I am in chains. The lords were cruel to me. The world is unfair. I cannot be held responsible for the ruin of my life. When you adopt the victim identity, you are absolved of all responsibility. The ego becomes addicted to the pity of the realm. It uses its wounds as a currency. It waves its scars in the air, demanding that the world lower its expectations. And this is why the open door is so utterly terrifying. If you walk out of that cell, the excuse dies. If you step into the sunlight of the courtyard, you are no longer a victim. You are a free citizen of the realm. And a free citizen must work. A free citizen must carry heavy stone to rebuild the keep. A free citizen must hold a shield. A free citizen must face the terrifying possibility of trying their absolute best in the open air and still failing. The freedom of the courtyard is infinitely more demanding than the absolute certainty of the dungeon. You realize, with a sickening drop in the stomach, that staying on the damp floor is easier than standing up. So you construct a philosophy of despair. You tell the realm that the sunlight is an illusion. You gather with other prisoners in the dark, and you compete to see whose chains were the heaviest. You attack anyone who suggests that the door is open. You become the warden of your own prison. Listen to the cold, undeniable truth of the realm. It is true that you did not choose the dungeon. You did not choose the cruelty of the lords who put you there. You did not choose the sickness, or the betrayal, or the tragedy that struck you down in the mud. The trauma was entirely outside of your control. You were a victim of the fray. But hear this clearly. The trauma is not your fault, but the healing is your absolute, unyielding responsibility. No one is coming down the stairs to carry you out. The rescuers have opened the door. They have broken the lock. The path is clear, but they cannot force your legs to walk. If you choose to remain in the dark when the door is open, you are no longer a captive of the enemy. You are a captive of your own ego. You must drop the phantom iron. You must surrender the deep, toxic comfort of having an excuse. It is a violent, agonizing psychological maneuver. You must grieve the years you lost in the dark. You must accept that the world is unfair, that you were wronged, and that no amount of sitting in the corner will ever force the universe to hand you an apology. The apology is not coming, but the sun is shining. Look at the open door. Look at the light spilling across the stone. The air in the courtyard is cold. The work required to rebuild your life will be backbreaking. Your muscles will ache, and the tremor will beg you to retreat to the shadows. Do not retreat. The dungeon is dead. You have already survived the worst the world could do to you. You are a veteran of the dark. The light cannot kill you. Put your hands on the stone floor. Push yourself up. Leave the rusted iron where it lies. Walk up the stairs. Step into the blinding light. Accept the heavy, magnificent burden of your own freedom. The march continues.